there fans, Matt again from Matinee Comics with another Ask the Author. Sorry for the delay, but there's a lot of other work keeping me busy. Let's jump right into the Q&A, shall we? We'll make this kind of a shorter video. The first few questions come again from our fan and friend, Sarah. Sarah asks what the timeline is, or the length of time it takes to go from a script to a finished product. That varies. The scripting especially is probably the most variable part of the process. It can take me either a quick hour to scribble out a real quick script based off of an idea that's already fairly well thought out, or it can take me about 3 to 4 hours depending on how detailed the script needs to be. Detail is important when you're working in an illustrated medium. There are certain things that don't come across very well to the illustrator unless you have specific wording in your script. Once Renee gets the script, she starts in on sketches, and sketches take maybe, from a base product, sketches can take 4 hours. And keep in mind that we each only have a short amount of time outside of our normal workday to get this done. Renee actually tends to take, I think once she gets the script, she can get a full comic out in 8 hours. But these are 2 sessions. These are after she gets home from work and has dinner, generally Monday and Tuesday night, unless she has weekends free. But it goes from sketch ideas into inks and then colors and then lettering and shading. All about 8 hours. So overall, maybe 10 to 12 hours from scripting into finished product. That doesn't really include what we call the blurb, which is the little words at the bottom of the comic, and then whatever we use when we post it. That takes maybe another hour. So total about 15 hours maybe for one of the 3-panel comics, maybe a little bit longer if it's the full page size. That being said, actually, it leads right into Sarah's next question. What is the hardest part of producing these comics? Initially, the hardest part was coming up with the ideas. Ideas aren't the easiest thing to do, even when you are basing it off of your real life. It takes a lot of trial and error to get the correct format and the best way to do it. Ideas really seem to be the hardest part. I'd say the second hardest is trying to convey those ideas, because it's quite often where I will have a specific image in my head when I write it, and I'll bring it to Nay, and she'll work with it, but sometimes it's just not possible to do it the way I thought it could be done. I'm not a college graduate of a design program, so I don't really understand things like layout or the best perspective to get things done visually. I understand how it works in your mind, because when I write to the reader. So I write how it should be seen in your head, not really on paper. And so that's probably the second most difficult thing we deal with. Sarah's last question is if we have any plans for conventions, depending on level of merchandise sales and things like that. And we definitely do. Renee and I have been going to a Chicago comic book convention called C2E2 for many years now. Sadly, we won't be able to make it this year. It's actually this coming weekend, and things didn't work out financially and travel-wise. So we won't be going this year. There is one in Des Moines, Iowa, that we plan on going to as well. It's a new one from Wizard World. Famously, I think they produced Magic the Gathering, that sort of thing. But they're holding a convention in Des Moines this coming, I'm not sure in the exact month, but coming soon. Hopefully next year we'll actually be able to go to conventions and table. Historically, when we went to conventions, we'd actually sit in mostly on panels, which is where industry bigwigs or industry workers would sit down in a panel and discuss the comic book industry, creation process, that sort of thing. So most of the time we spent at conventions was in those panels. So we maybe spend 1 or 2 hours on the actual convention floor, and most of that was spent in Artist Alley. We actually plan on tabling at conventions in Artist Alley, maybe next year, depending on how quickly we can get turnaround on merchandise and sales. Um, Hopefully, with because the way it works in conventions is generally the artists in Artist Alley are trying to sell their product enough to make up for the cost of a table, which can be $300 or $400 to start, cost of travel, and the cost of those products as well. So if you find yourself at a convention and wandering Artist Alley, please take the time to let the artists that you find that intrigue you, let them know that you appreciate the work they do, and spend a little bit of money on some of the products they have. Anything like $5 can go a long ways. It may seem like a lot for $5 to buy a bookmark, but that bookmark is a representation of their art. It's a little reminder to you as well that this artist caught your interest. In the line of convention plans, my good friend from my days in California, Galen, aka Dr. Deeds, made a few comments about the book idea that Renee and I had been tossing around that were relevant to convention talk. He was discussing some other sort of collections that people have done, and the fact that they would have commentary, sort of annotations in with it. And that's something that we had been talking about as well, so that when we have our collection of our first 100 comics, we would have commentaries with it, little humorous anecdotes, things like that. Something different from what you see on the website, a little more involved. So that we're not just selling a collection of our comics, we're selling a personalized book where we will have different commentaries and maybe some sketches or things like that in the margins as well. So it's not just going to be just the comics. It's also been suggested, not just from Galen, also our friend Sarah, but quite a few people, that we should keep the original art style through our first collection so that people can see the growth of the art style and the writing style. And Renee and I can see the benefits in that. Galen also mentioned that it's possible that we would do a special edition which collects the first section of the comics that aren't exactly the art style that we prefer, and doing a sort of a redrawing. And some of our webcomic artists, friends, and that we are fans of have done that as well. They've taken the first collection of comics that are in different art style and redrawn them, and that is something we're definitely considering doing. That's a little bit further in the future than things such as t-shirts, buttons, that sort of thing. And hopefully we'll have something put together by next year when it comes to be con season again, so that we can meet you guys at the tables in Artist Alley. When and if that happens, we would have a blog post explaining that we're going to be at a convention, asking you guys to come out and visit, because it's always great to meet our fans face to face. It's actually surprising how many times we've run into somebody and they've known of the comic and we've known them, but they didn't know that we did the comic. And those are always fantastic moments, and we hope to see that a lot in conventions as well, to meet our fans. So thank you again for the questions, guys. Keep it up. We'll try and keep these videos coming up often. Weekly might not work as it turns out, but as soon as I can get these videos up, I will. Thank you again, and have a good day.